Now, the death of elder statesman and chieftain of the Pan-Yoruba socio-cultural organization Afenifere, Pa Adebanjo, on the 14th of February 2025 is still one that is felt by not just the organization, but also well-meaning Nigerians who miss his upright take on social and national issues that affect the common man. The foremost nationalist, who died at 96, will be buried on the 3rd of May 2025 in his hometown in Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State. Since his death, there has been a deafening silence in the activities of Afenifere as one of the leading voices is no more. Well, joining us to discuss the void left by Pa Adebanjo in Afenifere, preparations being made towards his burial, is Akin Osuntokun, the former Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council and a chieftain of Afenifere. Good morning and welcome to the program today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Balogun Okemesi, thank you for joining us.
I have a new one.
You have a new title?
I have a new title, yes.
Which one is that?
I showed you about Ajashepu.
Okay, Ajashepu. That's where your family came from, originally, in Kwara State.
Exactly.
So now that you are Ashojuoba of Ajashepu, going back to your original ancestral, I hope you know that that has implications.
Of course.
Very serious implications.
Are these implications in your hand?
Exactly.
But let's talk about Baba Adebanjo. Now, the Afenifere had an event, and then, of course, the process for his burial, has begun. Afenifere, Labour Party, the Awis group, where he was very prominent, the whole of Nigeria celebrating this man. Let's start by talking about him, his life, his legacy, his times.
Well, I would thank you for receiving me once again. I'm sure that if I start, you second guess me. You see, there was this German sociologist, Max Weber.
Yeah.
No, he died in
philosopher.
He died in 1921. So his inaugural address at the University of Berlin in 1920 was politics as a vocation. Right? Those vocation means calling. Essentially, your ideal type of politician. It's the kind of characteristics you have to distinguish or identify one is first, it doesn't, you cannot associate him with what you call immediate gratification of incentives like money, that he is not swayed by that. Second is that whenever there is a crisis in society, that person will be capable of holding his head, not being swayed either left or right. So, and of course, so there are a number of politicians that approximate that, identification. Some of them, the most conspicuous ones are Awolowo, Azikwe, and Ahmadu Bello. But you know what? And he does, at a lower level, he has been into politics for God knows how long. He was organizing secretary of AG since 1951. He was the original 7 members who heeded the call of Awolowo to establish AG. And so he has been there. And the thing about him, as I also said elsewhere, is that even though he was very close to Awolowo, he could have gotten any position that he wanted, yet, he never sought to contest into any office. He didn't accept any public appointment. So this is the kind of person that you are. His whole life was, a mesh. He has this limitless passion for whatever he is doing. His enthusiasm is infected. Like, he sees me like this, Balogun, don't that. Or if you haven't seen him for a while, there was a time that I wrote in my column this day, I wrote a critique one of a critique of Awolowo that instead of going to the center, it should have remained in the Western region. He had done a lot. If he had remained in the Western region without any fear of contradiction, Western region today will almost rival, Paris, Brazil, at the rate they were going, the indices of development, the way they were carrying, but it then sought to go to the center, and which became very dysfunctional. Eventually led to the crisis, first within his own party, the Western region, and ultimately the army took over in 1966. So this is his life. And what for me really, one thing that pains me is that, well, not pain. I would have loved to have a clarification from him. Was what did he go to do in Ghana, right? So followers of Awolowo like S.G. Kuku, himself, and Nauru, all of them went to Ghana. Up to today, it baffles scholars. They don't know, on the one hand, there is evidence that they were doing something. On the other hand, you cannot do a coup with torchlights, and machete, because those are the instruments that, so it remains a riddle. And I think it's the last one of them who could have clarified what really happened, because it hasn't happened. Okay. The last time a friend of us asked him, he didn't say anything, he just said, get up. When you saw him a few days later, he then started aging around. But that's by the way.
All right. Now, as we put his life in perspective, of course, we now have to bring Afenifere into the conversation as well. In the intro, we spoke of almost a deafening silence from the group. Recently. So yes, I'd like you to speak to that, with regards to his legacy and the impact it will have on the direction that Afenifere will continue to move in.
There is far from a deafening silence. About a week ago or thereabouts, we had a public symposium for the first time. So on the contrary, we have been quite visible. Now you see, he was alive when we were putting together the public symposium. Now, when he passed away, a number of coincidences happened. His birthday was April 10. So he had died, I think, 2 months before that time. So we then, packaged, conceptualized the public symposium like an annual organized on his behalf, for him, for his memory. So that's why Afenifere has not been definitely silenced. The other one was what the legacy he was leaving behind. He was very passionate, of course, about politics and more so the younger generation. And
how it will shape the direction that Afenifere will continue to move in.
Exactly. There are two critical areas that Afenifere has identified that needs to be, the gap needs to be bridged. That is the participation of women and the participation of the younger generation in the affairs of Afenifere by mostly omission, right? The participation of women is lacking. Although this has been the general tendency of politics everywhere, so Nigeria cannot be an exception. But the women now, they are bringing it out as an issue. Like the last symposium we had, all the participants, the speakers, about 7 of us were males. And so many of the women, especially the friends of his second daughter, were very annoyed that this is not representative of women. Mm-hmm. Then is the younger generation. The younger generation, but even both categories, right? There's this Yoruba saying that Omodoba knows okay. That it's a baby who loses his hand, that mother will carry, you know. So.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for that. I mean, as we look ahead to this weekend and the burial service, we do know it's taking place in his hometown of Ijebu-Ode itself. Can you talk to us about what you're going to be expecting in terms of like the ceremonial rites? Will there be anything that you in particular will be looking forward to at the ceremony this weekend?
Not this weekend.
Is it not this weekend? I thought that's what we said in our introduction. The burial would be this weekend?
No.
May, the 3rd of May, so next week.
Third, yes.
Yep.
But there is a night of tributes
okay.
on the 30th of May.
Okay.
No, April 30th.
I mean, sorry, on the 30th of April.
Okay.
So it's not this weekend. Are we going to have any particular... well, the man was very meticulous in his dealings. I mean, like he gave us, inadvertently, gave us a long notice. I mean, it was such a strong, until he fell ill, you almost think of him as a rock that will never, his own father lived to 106. Wow. So he said, well, that was his target, but unfortunately, he went away. So other than the tributes, I think Ruben is the anchor of the night of tribute. So he himself may have one or two things to tell you.
And then I see that you brought a copy of Telling It As It Is. Yeah. And it's obviously been written by Pa Adebanjo himself. Can you talk to us about the book? What parts of it that you enjoy in particular? Because I know it was important for you to bring it here today.
You know, when he was alive, when he sees me, he will say, Balogun do Dondawa. So I will respond and say, well, look, one of his names is Samuel. I will say that Egberun Samuel Samuel. It's Yoruba man that will catch the joke. All of it is Samuel. So I'll say that people just say, well, look, thousands of you cannot escape the grasp, you know. So he was also a fashionista. You know, he likes this kind of...
Oh, please send it to our camera so they can send it to that camera there. Yeah, we go.
You know, if you go through the pages, you will see how he's always very meticulous about his appearance. You know, I will have... so that's something...
See that there? Some pictures from his childhood.
Not to the viewers. Well, I'm sure we'll
pick it up. I think you should show the cover of the book.
There we go.
And that's what is more important. Yeah.
Zoom in here.
And I recall that when this book was launched or was publicly presented at Sonya Ogbu, that's his community, I was the book reviewer. And I recommend the book for everyone to read, you know, just to see, you know, what the book talks about. His life and times, basically, and his involvement in the politics of Nigeria. And April 30, Balogun, I prefer Balogun, this Ashuju Oba of your original hometown. I will recognize it when you give us the implications. On April 30, when we celebrate Chief Ayo Adebanjo, we'll be reading from Psalm 23. Psalm 23, for those who know the subject, is very important. We'll be reading from Psalm 90. We'll be reading also from Revelation 21, verses 1 to 8. These are very significant passages in the Holy Scriptures. But, you know, we thank God for his life, and we thank you, Balogun Okemesi. Ashuju Oba.
Yeah, I think that's what he was looking for.
That's the new title for joining us. But the Ashuju Oba, when I enjoy the implications. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.